Hello, hi, hello, and welcome to Chris's Creative Corner, Season 1, Episode 16. We're talking Chapter 16 of my novel, Romance. That's a romance novel. Porch Light. I know words, and I know them in the right order and everything. So we're doing that, and today we're also answering a couple questions in Questions for Chris. Today's question actually comes from a conversation I was having with one of my cohort members about writing, and she was interested in possibly trying to write her own book or something like that. I can't remember exactly. She was interested in some kind of creative writing, but she asked me, do you think it was something along the lines of, do you think someone can be a writer if they don't experience strong emotions? And it's a really good question. I don't want to answer for everyone and be like, you have to feel in order to be able to write people who feel. But I think it's true with empathy. If you can't empathize with someone, if you can't put yourself in their shoes and really try to understand where they're coming from and try and feel that experience, I don't know that you can truly relate to people. Sympathy is one thing. You can sympathize with someone just fine and be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry that your dog died or so and so died or, this or that." Sympathy is totally a thing. I think anybody can provide basic sympathy, and that doesn't necessarily even have to it doesn't require any emotion. Um, it really doesn't. Empathy is the one that requires that ability to view things from someone else's perspective, to really try and put yourself in their shoes, to see where they're coming from, what they're feeling, what their experience has been like. And I don't know that there are writers who, if you don't understand complex feelings, I don't know how you can write about them. At In the same vein, I don't understand what it's like to be a rock star or to be super addicted to alcohol or to come out and not have family support. Um, I don't know what it's like in other romances that I've written. I don't know what it's like to lose my husband. I don't know what it's like to um I don't know what it's like to be a music teacher. I don't know what it's like to um do a lot of the things that I write about. Or be I don't know what it's like to be some of the people that I write about, whether that's their sexual or affectional orientation or their gender identity or their expression, their ethnicity, their anything, their socioeconomic status. I don't know what it's like to get a check for $29,000 and suddenly be rich and never have to worry about money. I don't know what that's like. Um, it's my ability to empathize that is really able to help me try and put myself in their shoes, in their position, and figure out what this character would do. If I was this person, what would I do in this situation? How would I feel? How would I act? What would my experience be? What do things look like? How do things smell? How do things taste? Um, how comfortable is the hotel bed? What's the suite like? That kind of, all of those things. And I don't know if if you don't have the ability to empathize, then I don't know that you can successfully do that. I think that, you know, um, there are straight people who write about queer people all the time, and they actually portray them in a successful way. That's not always the case, just like it's not always the case that any queer writer can successfully write a love scene, a romantic love scene, between two queer people, if you haven't ever experienced that kind of thing. It can happen. I don't know that it always will. So it's important for me to think and consider. I would encourage anyone to write, ultimately. If you have that desire, you have that ability, try it out. See how it works for you. Try it on. See what it's like. And from there, you can decide how that's working out. And the other important part is the feedback from beta readers, from alpha readers, from readers in general, from editors, from your friends and family. That kind of stuff has been really helpful in determining like what's working and what's not. So, yeah, I think anybody can try their hand at being a writer, um, whether you experience strong emotions or not. I wonder if maybe it's true that people who experience strong emotions usually tend to write more emotional scenes successfully than others. That's what I would guess. I tend to be highly emotional, and I don't know that my scenes come across as filled with emotion. I tend to write a lot of dialogue. So I don't know. I'll get it figured out. I'll think about it. We'll ponder. We'll discuss later. Don't you love my accents? That was my New York. I don't know if that's an accurate representation. I don't even know where this would be from because apparently people in Brooklyn speak much differently than people from Manhattan. So I don't even know. But my southern accent's on point. Now, isn't it? Don't you love my accents? I'm such an expert. Anyway, the next question. What other authors are you friends with and how do they help you become a better writer? Um, I'm really good. I can't say that I'm really good friends. I have a group of author friends who I meet with the first and third Saturday of every month. And what we do is the first Saturday is a critique, which is all about we share our work, we read out loud, people mark up the papers we provide, that kind of thing. And then the third Saturday is about um, learning. It's some kind of educational opportunity, learning about publishing, learning about writing this specific way, techniques, resources, that kind of thing. So that's been helpful. I'm part of other writers groups. I was able to connect through a beta reading group with an author on the East Coast, and she was the one who actually read the original version of what was my sci-fi trilogy at the time, and she absolutely loved it and wanted me to publish it so much. And so that's when I started working on it and revised it, and now it's a series of 4 books. Um, and I think I'm going to surprise her even more because it's changed and stayed the same, and it's gotten better. And so, like that's my opinion, but I'm just really excited for her to see that. There are other people that I know. Um, there's a local author who I was able to connect with, and we're all on different journeys. Is the thing. There aren't other I don't know of any other queer men in this area who write queer romance. And if you are in Southeast Idaho and you're like, hey, that's me, contact me. Dude, we should get together and like talk about it for sure. That would be amazing. I'm so lonely. Just kidding. But seriously, I do feel alone a lot where I'm writing like all of these queer characters and queer based stories, and other people are like, "Oh, I'm writing a memoir, I'm writing a biography, or oh, I'm writing this fantasy thing with this or that and blah blah blah." And I'm like, "My books are gay." So, just stuff like that. Feel free to reach out to me. But other than that, the authors and writers that I do know help me become a better writer by providing feedback, by helping me keep it real, reminding me that there's a world outside of this space where I sit and write and record my podcasts and everything. So that's always really nice to know. That's it for questions for Chris. So now we are going to move on to chapter 16 of Porch Light. Yes. Aw. Again, I can be really weird sometimes, and I'm not sorry. Chapter 16, Building It Up. The next morning, Levi ordered room service for all of us. I woke up to the smell of coffee and made my way out to the suite's kitchen. Good morning. Morning. I sat down in one of the chairs, yawning. Kennedy handed me a cup of coffee. Thanks. I added cream and sugar. So we only have 2 more shows until the tour is done. Kennedy took a bite of her eggs. What's everybody going to do once they get done with the tour? Sleep. I took a sip of coffee. So much sleep. What about you, Levi? He swallowed a bite of toast, looking thoughtful. I thought I might go volunteer back at the school, or maybe I should go back to school to be a teacher. But you're a guitarist in a rock band. No, yeah, I know. He yawned. I mean, I can't do this forever. I know we haven't talked about how long we'd be a band or anything, but I can't spend the rest of my life doing this kind of stuff. I'm not a late night person. I never really thought about what happens after all this either. Kennedy sipped her orange juice, frowning. I love being a drummer. I've never found a job I liked, but now that I'm getting paid to be a drummer, I have. What about you? What are you going to do during our break? She tilted her head and smiled. I thought I might go to the beach. Vacation in LA. I love it here. I'm even thinking about moving here. That would make rehearsing hard. She shook her head at me. We'd still spent a ton of time together practicing and recording and stuff. Yeah, I guess I haven't thought a whole lot about what's going to go down once we get back to King. Levi squinted at me. You and Casey still live together. That should probably change. I sighed sadly. Yeah, I'll have to find a place of my own. I'll search online today. Better sooner rather than later. The 3 of us were eating when Casey wandered out in his pajamas, wincing at the sunlight streaming through the curtains. Levi wordlessly handed him a cup of coffee. Casey reached into his bag to grab his flask, and Kennedy spoke up. Can you maybe not, Casey? Not everything you drink has to have alcohol in it, you know. He looked up between the 3 of us. I turned my eyes down. I didn't want him to feel like he was being judged. Unfortunately, he absolutely did feel judged. What? I'm not allowed to live a little? We're rock stars now, people. We're allowed to do the drinking and drug thing. No, we're allowed to drink because we're over 21, and we're allowed to smoke pot because it's legal in California. What we're not allowed to do is become an alcoholic and drag the rest of the band down because we're too busy drinking to play our fucking instrument like professionals. Kennedy? No, Nick. Don't you stand up for him. He's been drinking too much ever since we started this tour. He's missing cues all over the place, and last night he basically didn't play for the last 3 songs. I don't need this shit. Casey stood up and began to walk back to his room, but Kennedy followed him. With a look at Levi, we both decided to stay put. We heard Kennedy shout at Casey through his door for a good 10 minutes before she came back to breakfast, sitting down with a huff. And thanks for the backup, you two. I really appreciate the support. I'm not going to yell at Casey. Yeah, he's drinking too much, but... But what, Nick? She looked me in the eye, and for the first time I saw fear. If Casey doesn't get his shit together, he could be fired from the band. Omar has made several comments about him not performing up to standards when he's been drinking on stage. He's even tried to limit drinking at the concerts, but Casey has his own flask, and it always seems full. Don't tell me you don't realize how serious this is. It could be pretty unpleasant. Levi took a bite of bacon, looking thoughtful. We should approach it in a way that doesn't make Casey want to quit, though. Yelling doesn't do any good. We should just chill. Kennedy sighed. You're right. I shouldn't have yelled at him. He's just making me so angry. And everything's already super tense anyway. Oh, great. Now it's going to be my fault again. I wiped my mouth angrily and made to stand up, but Kennedy pushed me back down with surprising strength. No, you don't get to leave right now. You and Casey have been doing the short and to the point conversation thing for the last 2 months. We're both getting really sick of it. I looked at Levi, who shrugged. Look, I said I was sorry. No, you didn't. Kennedy folded her arms over her chest. You have not once apologized to Casey, or the rest of us, for that matter. What did I do to you two? You hurt our bass player, and you jeopardized our rise to fame by doing an interview and banging the guy who was doing it. And you may never have said you thought Casey was gay, but you told that guy enough he was able to come to his own conclusions. You are totally to blame for your fuck-up, and you haven't apologized at all. I stared at her for a moment, the truth dawning on me. I could only remember one thing Casey said during our fight in Nashville, that he'd never want to be with me. Since then, I hadn't talked about the whole thing at all. So I should just go scream at him that I'm sorry? Is that the way to handle this? Kennedy just stared at me. I can't tell you how to manage your relationship with Casey. I sighed. Look, I'm sorry I didn't consider you guys and our band when I did the interview. I thought it was just going to be a good press thing, get us more fans, that kind of thing. And it did, in a way, but I think the price was too high. I looked down the hallway toward Casey's room. Way too high. You're damn right. Kennedy took a sip from her coffee cup. Now you should figure out a way to apologize to Casey, and it needs to be good. I had a light bulb moment. Levi, can we do the acoustic version of Sorry tonight, and will you play for me? He nodded. Thank you. That night, we performed at the Staples Center again to a sold-out crowd. It came time to do Sorry in our set, and I called out into the microphone, "This is for you, Casey. I messed up, and I know it." And I proceeded to pour my soul into singing the song we'd written together, except I changed the lyrics at the end, so I really was sorry. We finished the concert and went backstage, where Casey immediately rounded on me. "What the fuck, Nick?" "What?" "Why would you do that?" I looked around at Kennedy and Levi, who both avoided eye contact. "I hadn't apologized to you about what happened, so you decided to call me out in front of 20,000 people?" "No, it was supposed to be nice." I looked pleadingly at him. "It was the song we wrote together. I thought you would know how much I meant it I'm sorry if I did it wrong." "Well, now people are gonna wonder what the fuck is going on." "It could just be that I called you a name or something." He shook his head, then grabbed his flask from his pocket. "God, why is everything so complicated with you?" I frowned. It's it's not. I don't try to. But it is. You can't just say you're sorry to me in private and try to have a talk in private. You have to do an interview everyone reads, talking about our friendship and getting all the shit wrong. Then you have to apologize about it in front of 20,000 screaming fans. It's never easy with you. It's not like you make it any easier. My anger flared and I stood my ground. So people thought you were gay because of one article in a local bi-weekly newspaper. Big deal. Have you made out with enough women to show everyone you're not? I never said you were gay, the reporter did. Oh, this shit again. He took a drink from his flask, then laughed. I don't care who said what. The fact that it was in print is bad enough. So you're still saying being gay is a bad thing? When you're not gay and people call you gay, it's a bad thing. He gestured with his flask, spilling some of the contents. It's like if someone called you a pedophile. You're not, and it's insulting someone would call you that, right? So you'd want that shit corrected. I shook my head. So being gay is like being a pedophile. That's not what I'm saying. No, you're saying being gay is as bad as being a pedophile. You don't want people thinking you're gay because it means something's wrong with you, right? Because being gay is a bad thing, right? That's not what I. Yes, it is! I shouted loudly and stamped my foot. That's exactly what you're saying. You don't want people thinking you're gay because it's a bad thing, so that means you've always thought there was something bad about me. You know what? I'm not sorry I'm gay, but I'm sorry you feel so homophobic. His eyes grew wide. I'm not homophobic. I have been nothing but supportive of you ever since you came out. I was there when you came out to your parents. If only I'd known how much you three had in common. My words were like a slap to the face for him. Just then our stage manager, Jen, came backstage with a bunch of people with VIP lanyards around their necks. But they all stopped when they heard what Casey said next, looking shocked. I have no problem with who you're attracted to. If you want to be gay, be gay. That doesn't give you the right to be a selfish prick. Hector was right. I guess we do have a diva on our hands, folks. Too bad he just doesn't realize it. Fuck you! I flipped him off and stomped toward the waiting group, many of whom were girls. If any of you want to sleep with Casey, just let him know. He's out to show just how much of a man he is by sleeping with a bunch of women. Because that's better than being a fag, right, Case? I looked at the startled fans. Sorry to spoil your night. Sometimes people fight. You just caught us on a bad night. And I walked past. The driver outside took me back to the hotel room, where I proceeded to get stoned out of my mind and pass out. Hey, it worked for Casey, right? Well, again, More fighting. Chapter 16. My goodness. Woof. You know, I do have to say one comment on this chapter, and in a later chapter, I can't remember which chapter, there's a moment where Omar, who is black, uses the N-word, and I'm going to bleep that out. I will not be saying that on this channel. The reason for that is because I am not black, and it is not my place to use that kind of language. That being said, I included a really bad F word. The word fag. Some people don't like that word. Some people find it more offensive than the other F word, fuck. I can say fuck all I want, but saying fag is deemed as much worse to some people. And the reason that I feel I can say the F word is because I am a member of the community who has been marginalized and has had that word weaponized and used against us. So I just want to make that clear that I don't take lightly using that F word. I don't use it in my vocabulary regularly. At all, actually. I think that's the only appearance. I think this book is the only book that I have that word in it. No, it's in Avoiding Aiden, but again, a gay character uses it. I guess what I'm trying to say through all of this is that language is really important to everyone, and knowing boundaries within language is also really important. I shouldn't be going around calling people N-words because obviously that's racist, and I also shouldn't be using the N-word with a friend who's black either, because I am not part of that community. That is not one of my cultural identities, and different cultures have different languages that they use, different words that they use to refer to each other and represent each other, and that's not my place for me to use those words. I think that's a really important distinction to make here. So I just wanted to point that out as we move forward. Again, I'm trying not to make too much commentary after each chapter because I'm going to be talking about it with a couple people at the end, either in a one-part or a two-part episode. I'm not sure which. So yeah, I just wanted to make it clear that language is important and cultural differences within language are important to be aware of. And that's all. And that's all for this episode of Chris's Creative Corner. So thank you for tuning in, as always. I appreciate your listening, your viewing, and if you're reading along, that's awesome. I really appreciate it. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions that I can answer in another episode of Chris's Creative Corner, and we'll see you next time.